The ML Sports Platter back with you all over the major platforms. Download, subscribe, rate, and review, and make sure to subscribe to my YouTube page at ML Sports Platter. We're brought to you by Stanley Law Offices, CH Insurance, and Burn Dairy. And we bring in one of my favorites, Gene Waldron, Syracuse basketball great, who had a hell of a weekend with Jim Boeheim Day, the little too close for comfort Syracuse win. I'm sure we're going to get into all of that. And, of course, his thoughts on Adrian Autry's first year and kind of reminisce about his career a little bit as well. Gene, welcome to the show. It's been honestly too long, and I've been pumped up to have you on. And I know I just got you right out of the gym, so you're all fired up and, you're ready to lift that car you're sitting in. How are you?
Oh, yes. I'm ready to go. It's been a long time coming, but, I'm glad to be on your show.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So just take my listeners and viewers through the weekend for you. You sat there on pins and needles for the Notre Dame game, right? It got a little too close there, and then the festivities, and you got to see all the former players and friends and teammates, and then the banquet at night as well, right?
Yes, it was a fun, but actually a long day. Starting off getting to the dome, seeing some of the ex players, having great conversations, great laughs, a lot of reminiscing, which was like really a lot of good stories amongst the players. A lot of the players that I played with were actually there, which was really a lot of fun. But getting to the game, as they were blowing North Carolina, Notre Dame out, we just stopped watching the game. We were just talking amongst ourselves, and then before you know it, they turned it into a basketball game, and then it was nail biting. But in the end, they pulled it out. I think that they took their foot off the pedal a little bit, but you got to play two halves, and I think that's something they're going to have to learn.
One thing that you and I have gone back and forth on social media has been, let's just calm down with the whole Adrian Autry thing. When you lose a game or, you have a bad hat, like you got to give somebody time to build a program. Can you kind of speak to, you played for Jim, obviously, but as a former player, a big fan of the game, somebody who watches the game, studies the game, knows the game as well as anybody, can you just kind of speak to the job that he's done this year and what jumps out to you that has kind of been a wow factor, that he has it in him to have sustainability, to have success at Syracuse?
I think one of the biggest things is you just look at the record. They're a couple of wins away from 20 wins. Who would ever thought that? The season's kind of been up and down a little bit, but for the most part, he's had those guys playing very good basketball. And you got to remember, I think a lot of people don't understand, this is a very young team. And you got players playing out of position. You got Brown. He's not a center. He's a 3-4. The centers have been hurt. He's made things possible for what he's got. You have to, I think people don't understand, this is not an easy job to take over from Coach Boeheim. It's just not an easy job. But when you look at what he's done and his coaching staff, you have to be proud. You have to clap, win or lose. No one wants to go out there and lose. No one wants to go out there and play bad. But that's sports. That's what happens. And some of the criticism is just unfair, in my opinion. And, me, I'm always going to stick up for my school. There's just no doubt about it. But I think he's doing an excellent job. And I think in the years to come, it's only going to get better.
Syracuse basketball great Gene Waldron with us here on the ML Sports Platter, brought to you by Rosie's Corner and Brewerton Ace Hardware. With that criticism, obviously, is at least I'm sure at some point you have a thinking that, well, that was created because of the standard, and the expectation of every year this team in the tournament. Now, I'm not the guy who says you have to win every year, Final Four every year. That's for Carolina, Duke, and for even crazier people or Alabama football. But I had Charlie Lockwood on my show not too long ago, and he brought up a really good point, and I wanted to tell you about it. And he had said, the expectation from where he is, and Charlie well, legendary lacrosse player, walked on the hoops team, part of the Orange family. He said, it's tournament basically every year, and then every so often you hit the Sweet 16, and then every that 6, 8, 9 year kind of Final Four. And it's just, that's what has been built here. So with a lot of that criticism comes craziness, but it also comes with the expectation that was set by that guy, Jim Boeheim, because he created the phenomenon here, right? So is it fair then to blend those together?
Well, I think people are going to do that, but I also think that the people who understands basketball understand the statement that you just said. There's always going to be that expectation because of what Coach Boeheim left behind, but in the same breath, this is his first year, and when you look at what he's done in his first year, you got to be pleased. There's been ups and downs, and that's always going to happen in basketball, football, soccer. There's going to be ups and downs, but how do you get through it? And I think he's done an excellent job in doing that. And I don't think he's able to do it unless he has the good coaching staff that he has.
Do you remember the day that you decided to come to Syracuse from Long
Oh,
Island? I mean, how did you end up here, and why did you decide?
well, for me, it was basically when I was in the 11th grade. I kind of knew I wanted to go to Syracuse, but I didn't let many people know about that because I wanted to take my 6 visits and go visit other schools. Tony Bruin was a big factor because he played at Syracuse before. He was before me. And also they had Eddie Moss, and Eddie Moss was really good friends with my dad and my family. And I just thought the Carrier Dome, not too far from home, a great place. And then again, you got to, back then, the Big East, one of the greatest conferences in America at the time in the 80s. So that was a big factor for me. And again, I knew I was going to play after Eddie left because he was a senior and I was going to just step right into that role, which I did. And, I had a great time in doing it.
Did you feel it before you got to Syracuse, or did it really hit you with what it was starting to become, the Big East, right? All the big regional schools with the Dome and, the Garden with the tournament and the rivalries, Georgetown, Nova, on and on it goes, St. John's, the TV package and ESPN. It's becoming a national thing, right? So many phenomenon programs, the emergence eventually of UConn, I understand. But when you got there, was it a little bit before and then the big feel, or was it right out of the chute when you decided and you said, I'm entering this big place of holy crap, this is becoming something on the national sports stage here?
It's funny you should say that because I didn't realize how big the Big East was until I got to Syracuse.
Okay.
And the competition was fierce. I mean, and then you look at the guys that were playing in the Big East: Chris Muller, Patrick Ewing. I mean, the list goes on. Sleepy Floyd, Brown Bagley. The list goes on and on. A lot of these guys were from the East Coast, so it was amazing and a little bit scary for me coming out of New York City. And I'm like, wow, this is big time. But you know what? I was so proud to be a part of the Orange and that Big East conference, and it was just fierce. Every game was fierce. I mean, the competition is beyond comprehension, but it was just a good time. It is unfortunate that we're not still in it, but that's just how it is. Football took over, right?
Yeah, no doubt. The cash cow it is football. Speaking of that, I mean, it's a new world. I mean, you just alluded to Adrian Autry in year one. It's hard enough to take over for Jim Boeheim. It's hard enough to win. It's hard enough under the normal. I mean, I say normal, nothing's normal, but the normal circumstances. Then you add in the portal and you add in NIL and all these wild things. By the way, I can't imagine what Ewing and those guys would have done with the portal and NIL. They would have cleaned up big time.
Hey, Mike, something? I want back pay.
Yeah, exactly. You would have cut some deals. You might not have been Patrick Ewing, but your personality, you would have signed.
I'd have cut some deals. It's. I'm not a big fan of that.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of that because I think a lot of the kids are about the dollar than the education and the playing the sport. And I think you can see that with some of the players who, before this came out, were really, really, really concentrating on their basketball. And you can see where it's been somewhat of a let off now with kids. It's just like, well, I got this money now, but if you don't have the good somebody helping you monitor and show you what to do with that money, it'll go real quickly.
Yeah, then you have like a Caitlin Clark on the women's side who is making bank, and because of her play, making these Steph Curry shots and doing her thing and becoming the all-time leader in NCAA, Not overall, by the way, because there's another record of, the pre-NCAA record. But, come out, she's making all this money, and the ratings for the women's game is, they're out of control. Some of the Iowa games on Peacock and NBC and all these, they've outrated some NBA games, honestly. And so you look at that part and you're like, well, geez, and that is the good part. But then you look at all the other stuff. So I guess my question, Gene, is where do we go from here? Is there a fear from where you sit that the sport is in trouble because of inconsistencies, roster changes, the fan, it's harder to relate to it, right? The product, maybe the talent's dispersed, right? But the product maybe isn't as great as it used to be as well because of that. Where are we at in terms of all of it affecting the game and former players like you? And how do you view the future with this stuff?
Well, it's real. That's a really tough question, because when have you ever known the NCAA to have it right? Never.
Yeah.
When have you ever known them to have it right? They make decisions, and then in a year or two, they're like, well, was it the right one? I just think the NCAA just never gets it right. In my opinion, they just don't get it right. And with this portal where kids transfer, go here, go there, go there. What about the kids coming out of high school? Now you come out of high school, you got to sign right away. You can't wait around like back in the day. You got to sign right away with a school, because the kids are just transferring all over the place. And one thing also, these kids coming out of high school, they go to a certain college, and before you know it, another kid's transferred into that college. So it's for me, it's very confusing, and I don't get it. And I just think the NCAA need to get some players sitting at the table and talk about some of these things. Because I'm sure some of these NCAA guys, they ain't never played basketball before. Or football.
No doubt. I think they got to go. I think they got to go too. And by the way, you add in the coronavirus year, which has been, kids are still working off that year. Some of these kids had another, bonus year from the COVID year. So you take portal, you take NIL, you take COVID. It's unbelievable. Some of these kids have played for 3-4 schools their entire career. And the NCAA, crazy. It is. And the NCAA, by the way, now that we have the pay for play and we have name, image, and likeness, and you can transfer all over the place, enough of the NCAA and all the rules and past stuff and banners that were taken down. Give Jim Boeheim his wins back. Give Reggie Bush his Heisman Trophy back. Put the banner back up for Louisville in 2013, right? Put the Fab Fives banner back up, right? Exactly. Because all bets are off, man. You can do anything right now. So all the rules that were broken or anything else, they don't even mean anything to me anymore, Gene.
Exactly.
I don't think they really ever did, but you get my point.
Yeah, I totally agree. A lot of things that should be fixed aren't getting fixed, and that's a major problem. And I've always had a problem with the NCAA and their rules and how they go about certain things. Because you look at these college coaches, they can up and leave at any time, even before all this, up and leave at any time. I recruited you. You come to play at my school. Oh, next year he's gone. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's really insane. But, again, this is sports. What's new, right?
Yeah, it's Pro Sports 2.0. Gene Waldron with a Syracuse basketball grade. I got a couple more for you here, and then I'll let you, I don't know, maybe go back to benching 700 pounds.
No, I got to go home to my dogs.
Oh, yeah. Mine's laying right here. I walked him before the interview because you never know when he's going to, get involved and bark and do his thing. 90 pounds old. And
it's funny you say that, because when I told my wife I was doing the park, she said, well, do it at the Y, because if you go home, the dogs, I've done these before. My dogs, they'll jump on me, they're barking, and they're doing all sorts of things.
What do you have, by the way, for dogs?
I have a pit chow chow mix and a great Pyrenees Alatonian Shepherd.
A lot of energy.
Yeah. And they don't play. So I don't have an alarm system because I don't need one.
See, I know that's funny. The barking part is really the only thing that would get me. If you were home and we ever did this and they were jumping on you, I would actually welcome it. I would love dogs in the show, but the barking thing, we can't talk. That's the only part, that's the only hurdle.
Right.
Yeah.
My dogs are, they're one. My youngest one, the Alatonian Shepherd. Yeah. She's 2 years old. She's 120 pounds. Yeah, she's big.
All right.
She's
All right.
big.
Yeah. So, being from New York, right? I mean, did you make your way ever as a youngster a lot to those big time games, the Rucker Park stuff and all? I mean, did you get over that way routinely? I'm sure you did, a couple times at least, but did you regularly go there and what was that like?
I went there a couple of times, and and you talk about Rucker Park, then you got um, King Towers tournament. There's a lot of other tournaments other than just the Rucker Park.
Sure.
The Polo Grounds. I played in all those games, and I'm from Long Island City. I'm from right near the 59th Street Bridge. So for me, a Queens kid to go play up there in the Bronx and Manhattan, they were like, "Who is this kid?" But I made a name for myself very,
Yeah.
very quickly. But the competition always was great up there. I mean, when you go to the Rucker Park, people were sitting on the fences and the trees. I mean, there was some great games up there. Great games.
Did you know right away? I mean, you were point guard, and then you kind of had to go to that two position for a guy by the name of Pearl Washington, who came from, an area well. And did you know right away about Pearl? I mean, what was it like seeing him for the first time?
I didn't know a whole lot about him until Syracuse started to recruit him.
Really?
I never really watched it until he came up for a visit, and then his notoriety just rose. And I can remember playing in the Madison Square Garden, and his family was sitting behind the bench, and they were just giving me all kind of grief. They was like, "Your spot is done. You ain't this. You ain't never gonna. That Pearl's gonna take over." And so my buddies,
Yeah.
from where I grew up, they was like, "Yeah, we're not having this." I was like, "Guys, we have a basketball game to play. We don't need no confrontation." But once he got to Syracuse, we became really good friends. We became even better friends after Syracuse. But I tell you what, watching Pearl play was magic. I mean, it was literally magic. There was nothing he couldn't do with the basketball. He was just phenomenal. I mean, sometimes I'd be sitting and watching him, and you would just think, how the heck is he doing that?
Yeah. Yeah. It was like Pete Maravich 2.0, right? It was like, Pistol Pete. Yeah. In the final minute I have left with you, I wanted to end with Jim Boeheim. Give me a Jim Boeheim quick minute story that you can tell, that that you're allowed to tell, that maybe comes to mind, that would be behind the curtains for people that would love to hear something really funny.
I think one of the biggest things is the day that I had 40 points in the Carrier Dome.
Iona?
Yeah, when I had 40 points, and there was still about maybe 3:14 left, and he subbed me out the game. He never even looked at me. I was looking at him to just get like, "Good game, Gene."
I want 50.
Pat on the back. He subbed me off and just kept looking at the game, and I was like, "Come on, coach, give me some kind of credit. I just dropped 40."
Yeah.
But it was funny because even after the game, when we was in the locker room, nothing. But that's coach though. That's coach, and it wasn't like he didn't respect or appreciate, but that was just coach. He's not going to show you a whole lot. You get it done, and that's all that counts.
So part of that, what we talked about earlier, maybe I'm not saying 40 every game, but sustainability, consistency, standard, excellence, expectation, right? Maybe that was the message.
That was the message.
Yeah.
Because one thing about Coach Boeheim, he says, he gets on his players. Like you said, it's expectation.
Yeah.
It's big time. And one thing I remember Coach always saying, when I'm not talking to you, you're done. He used to say, if I don't talk to you during the game, you're done. Yeah. And and I took that to heart. So I made sure he screamed at me all the time.
Yeah. Well, this was absolutely incredible. I knew it would be, and it's been way too long. Syracuse basketball great and dog lover and super muscle man Gene Waldron with us here on the ML Sports Platter. Gene, this was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the memories and recapping the weekend and getting into your career a little bit as well. We'll talk down the line, man. Stay in touch. We got to grab some lunch sometime soon, too. And I'll talk to you real soon, my friend. Thank you.
You got it. Take care. Bye-bye.